Mr. President, we are into the second day of a government shutdown after Democrats once again rejected a clean, nonpartisan funding bill to keep the government open.
This is day 2 of Donald Trump's shutdown, but it's day 256 of the chaos that the Trump presidency has unleashed.
This is Today as It Happened. Good Thursday evening to you. I'm Holly Furfer, here with your chronological look at the biggest events and stories of the day. From day 2 of the federal government shutdown to our ongoing investigation of drowning deaths at rental homes. But first this morning, we took a look at a deadly attack on a synagogue in the United Kingdom.
I heard bang bang, and then we heard the helicopters, we heard the siren, then we heard it was gunshot and there'd been a terrorist attack on the synagogue.
We are following a developing story out of the UK this morning. An attack at a synagogue in Manchester killed 2 people and seriously injured 3 others. Scripps News international correspondent John Beaver is in Bristol, England with more on this. And John, what can you tell us about the situation?
Yeah, Holly, as you say, this took place in Manchester up in northwest England, a very diverse city. And what we heard is this morning there were calls to police just after 9:30 local time here in the UK, saying that someone had driven their car into people outside of a synagogue in the northern end of Manchester. Police responded very quickly. There was just 7 minutes between them receiving that first call and then armed officers opening fire on the suspect. He was shot and killed. As you say, we know that 2 people were killed in this attack, and then a third person, who is the suspect himself, has also died. Due to suspicious items on the suspect's person, the bomb squad had to be called in as well. There have been reports from the scene just now of a loud controlled explosion. So the bomb squad making things safe because they were obviously concerned about what the suspects had on their person. We've seen images from social media showing how this horrific attack unfolded. We have also heard from the Prime Minister here, Sir Keir Starmer. He was in Denmark. He was meant to be talking at a meeting of European leaders. He is on his way back to the UK to chair an emergency meeting. He says that police presence has been stepped up at major synagogues across the UK in response to this attack. He also said he was appalled at this attack. He said the fact it's taken place on Yom Kippur, the holiest day in the Jewish calendar, makes it all the more horrific. He said his thoughts are with the loved ones of all those affected, and many thanks go to the emergency services and the first responders. We've had a similar message from King Charles as well, expressing his grief for those who've lost their life, but also his thanks for the police and the first responders. But all in all, an horrific incident that's unfolded up in northwest England. And as I say, 2 victims have died along with the suspect himself. A further 3 people in a serious condition, say authorities.
And John, just quickly, as you mentioned, this is Yom Kippur, the holiest holiday for Jewish people around the world. Have they stepped up security in other places outside other synagogues in the United Kingdom, knowing that this attack has happened, in case there are any follow attacks or any coordinated attacks?
Yeah, that was announced very soon after the attack took place, that there was going to be increased security. We've heard actually as well reports that there was a security guard outside the synagogue in Manchester. The synagogue itself appears to have been locked, so certainly it seems that the attack could have been worse if the attacker had managed to get inside. But yes, as you say, this taking place on Yom Kippur, a time when the synagogues are extremely busy, what is a holy and very important day for those of the Jewish faith. So certainly there is going to be some watchful vigilance going on across major synagogues up and down the UK. Everybody still reeling from this attack that's taken place in Manchester.
Scripps News international correspondent John Beaver reporting from Bristol for us. Thank you for that update. And Pope Leo XIV has weighed in on an abortion dispute involving the U.S. Catholic Church. The Chicago-born Pope questioned what it means to be pro-life when discussing a controversial award for Senator Dick Durbin. Leo said people who oppose abortion but support the death penalty or inhumane treatment of immigrants are not truly pro-life. The White House disputed the Pope's immigration comments. Two Delta regional jets collided on the runway at LaGuardia Airport, leaving dozens of travelers stranded on Wednesday. Flight 5155 was preparing to depart for Roanoke when the wing hit a cockpit window of another plane. One person was hospitalized with a knee injury. 85 passengers were on board the two planes operated by Endeavor Air. Coming up on Today as It Happened.
Dozens of children in one state have died because of a problem that's been ongoing for decades. I'm Lori Jane Gliha. Ahead, how lawmakers are trying to come up with a solution.
Welcome back to Today as It Happened. I'm Holly Furfer here with your daily rundown of today's top stories. At least 41 Palestinians were killed in Israeli strikes overnight in Gaza, and this comes as Hamas considers President Trump's ceasefire proposal. The plan requires Hamas to return all 48 hostages and give up power in exchange for prisoner releases. A Hamas official says some elements of the deal are unacceptable. Israel's defense minister has ordered all remaining Palestinians to leave Gaza City. The World Food Program warns Haiti is on the brink of collapse. Gang violence is pushing families deeper into hunger. Armed gangs now control nearly 90% of Port-au-Prince, restricting food access for citizens. More than 1 million people have been forced from their homes in search of food and shelter. More than half of those displaced are children facing malnutrition. Scripps News getting the attention of one lawmaker after a series of stories investigating drownings at short-term rental homes. Senior national investigative correspondent Lori Jane Gliha and her team have documented dozens of deaths of children backyard pools during vacation. And she's live now with a look at a new legislative push in a state where short-term rental homes are very popular with tourists. Lori Jane, what have you found out?
Hi, Holly. Well, we're talking about the state of Florida, a state with a lot of backyard pools and lots of vacation homes. Now a Florida lawmaker is crediting our Scripps News reporting for a bill he says he plans to propose.
2 months before she died, Leilani Carpio was a playful 2-year-old, busy with pretend phone calls.
I listen to these videos sometimes a lot. Sometimes you get scared that you're going to forget their voice. So that's what I do to cope.
Leilani's mother, Suheiri Carpio, had been saving up for the family's first vacation in July 2022, a trip from Massachusetts to Florida. She booked a short-term rental home.
How did you pick the house that you were going to stay in?
So I picked the house based on the location. You know, it wasn't that far to Disney. I'll say maybe about 20, 25 minutes maybe. It was pretty close. I did like it as well because of the pool.
The pool is where Leilani drowned.
We need an ambulance here right away.
She got past the mesh fence unnoticed after eating dinner in the backyard, and she wasn't breathing when her family found her.
Sometimes when people see this, they're like, oh, you weren't watching your kid, you know? But I definitely was watching my kid. And, you know, it was something that I couldn't prevent as a mom, you know?
Yeah? How old are you?
Our investigation found Leilani is one of at least 49 children who suffered a fatal or non-fatal drowning at short-term rental homes in Florida since 2021. In police records and court filings, we found some families simply didn't hear or see the child slip out of sight.
When was the last time someone saw her?
Hey, I don't even know. I really don't know.
Others blamed a lack of safety equipment or a faulty or missing fence. Since many of those cases happened in or near the vacation hotspot, Orlando, we decided to go there to find out what's going on.
911, what's the address of the emergency?
And the baby found the pool.
Okay, I'm going to tell you how to give mouth to mouth, okay?
Florida is vacation home central, and there are a lot of pools here. Every single one of these dark, screened-in areas is covering a pool.
In Florida, the law requires residential pools to have at least one of 5 safety features to pass an inspection. Those include either a door alarm, a pool cover, a water alarm, self-latching doors, or a pool fence. But the law only applies to pools built after the law took effect 25 years ago, in October 2000.
Well, we're going to have to get all these stakeholders together.
Florida State Senator Carlos Guillermo Smith is trying to change that. He met us at a local community pool.
Because of the fact that we have so many swimming pools and so many child drownings that were preventable, we also have a responsibility to be leading on drowning prevention and on swim safety.
Senator Smith, you are recognized to explain the bill.
I bring you this bill today to help address the epidemic of child drownings.
Last session, the senator sponsored a bill to update the state's pool safety law to bring all newly sold homes in line with specific standards, no matter when the pool was built.
And we know that this will save lives.
But it failed. Smith says he plans to keep pushing and is looking to introduce a new proposal focusing on safety requirements specifically for short-term rental homes. Inspired, he says, by our Scripps News investigation.
If they're going to be opening their houses up for a rental to make a profit, to actually run a business, then they need to follow stricter standards than our residential swimming pools are following right now.
At what point did you decide this is going to be a priority for you?
Well, after we saw some of your investigative reporting on how these short-term rentals are now becoming a place where these child drownings are happening.
While Senator Smith fights for a new law, others say short-term rental companies have the power to make safety changes right now, regardless of legislation. Personal injury attorney Michael Haggard.
They should be treated just like other commercial enterprises that have pools.
Haggard has handled many drowning-related lawsuits over the years.
I'm sick and tired of representing families who've lost a child.
He says short-term rental companies should take more responsibility by requiring fences and rescue equipment, similar to commercial hotels.
Isn't that responsibility on the homeowner rather than Airbnb and other platforms like it?
I agree the host has obligations, but Airbnb does too. They're partners in this.
What do you say to people, though? I'm sure you get this, though, like, this guy's just suing a bunch of people and they took the risk. If you don't know how to swim, why are you getting a house with a pool and why are you getting in the pool? What do you say to those people?
Look, we get those people sometimes. These safety measures in drowning have been tried and tested for 50 years. We know how to do better. It's just whether the short-term rental companies want to keep skirting by without doing it, or do they want to be considered more and be good neighbors like apartments are, like hotels are?
A Scripps News analysis of every child death report or summary published by Florida's Child Abuse Death Review Committee found 11 child drowning deaths at Florida hotel pools since 2021, compared to 43 at short-term rental homes. We asked short-term rental platforms about their role in preventing drownings. Vrbo declined to comment, but we know Vrbo's standards say hosts must ensure their properties meet all relevant building codes and safety requirements. Airbnb declined an on-camera interview, claimed drownings at short-term rentals are rare, and a spokesperson pointed us to a water safety campaign the company recently launched, aimed at helping guests and hosts communicate about water safety during the booking process.
I miss her all the time. Her hugs, her voice. Yeah, her voice, her looking for me every day, stuff like that. Sad.
Suheiri Carpio holds on to hope that talking about the loss of her daughter Leilani will raise awareness and bring change.
And Leilani's death was ruled an accidental drowning. Her family is now suing over her death, claiming the fence at the pool was defective. which the vacation rental host denied in court filings. The host claimed instead that Leilani was not adequately supervised. Airbnb, meanwhile, filed a motion to compel arbitration, or alternatively, a motion to dismiss, and argued the claims of wrongdoing were insufficient. The company claimed there is no factual support to suggest that Airbnb had a duty to inspect and investigate the house or warn Leilani's family of certain risks. Holly.
Wow. Lori Jane, you mentioned this drowning happened even though there was a pool fence at that vacation rental home. Did you find that in other cases you looked at?
Yeah, we did review several other cases in Florida where children drowned at a home where a mesh pool fence was left open or partially taken down. This is why drowning prevention advocates tell us that the ideal pool fence is one with a self-closing, self-latching gate, which is much more difficult to be left open, Holly.
You analyzed almost 5 years of drowning reports from the state of Florida alone. So what else did you learn from going through this mass amount of reports?
Well, we learned most drownings involving children in Florida are happening at residential pools based on state data. Usually it's the child's own home, but there also have been drownings at relatives' homes or acquaintances or friends' homes. Sometimes kids even wander into a neighbor's yard and fall into their pool. And that data also shows that kids drown most often when they weren't already out there swimming. They slipped into the pool unnoticed. And this is why experts talk about how important those fences and alarms and barriers are. And obviously supervision is key when living at, visiting, or vacationing at a home with a pool, Holly.
Scripps News senior national investigative correspondent Lori Jane Gliha live for us. Terrific reporting. Thank you for bringing that to us. Up next on Today As It Happened. The financial and emotional weight of taking care of aging parents is something many are not prepared for, and it's affecting everything from retirement plans to mental health. Coming up, I'll tell you why experts say it's going to continue to affect future generations. And later,
Unfortunately, Republicans have shown zero interest in even having a conversation.
watching Today As It Happened, Scripps News rundown of the biggest events and stories of the day. So let's jump right in.
President Trump has declared drug cartels in the Caribbean to be unlawful combatants. Now, this designation means the United States is now in a non-international armed conflict with the cartels. The move comes after the U.S. military already carried out 3 deadly strikes against alleged drug smuggling boats just last month. At least 2 of those operations targeted vessels from Venezuela. An immigration judge has denied asylum for a Maryland man whose case became a symbol of Trump's immigration crackdown. Kilmar Abrego Garcia was mistakenly deported to El Salvador in March and held in a notorious prison there. The Trump administration brought him back, but immediately charged him with human smuggling, and he has 30 days now to appeal the ruling. The White House is asking 9 major universities to sign a political compact in exchange for better access to federal money. This agreement would require schools to adopt Trump administration priorities on admissions, women's sports, and free speech. Universities would have to stop considering race and gender in admissions and cap international enrollment at 15%. Schools that sign on are promised priority access to federal grants and White House events.
AARP says the average family spends more than $7,000 a year taking care of an aging parent, spending 26% of their average income. And it's creating a financial hardship. When Scott Thomas realized his parents needed to move to assisted living, he wasn't prepared for the sticker shock.
I wanted to do everything I can to help them continue to have the best life possible, but it's a lot more money than you think, even if you've saved for it.
Matt Schultz with Lending Tree says his experience is not unique.
About 60% of people who support their parents say that they've taken on debt. And for a lot of people, the numbers aren't that huge, but about 13% say they've taken on $25,000 or more in debt over this situation.
A recent Lending Tree survey found that nearly 1 in 4 adults are already helping out their parents financially, with anything from groceries and personal expenses to housing, medical bills, and utilities. And just as many adult children expect they'll need to in the future. Brian Sullivan helps families find senior living options for aging parents that fit their budgets.
And there are 4 primary types of care: independent living, assisted living, memory care, and skilled nursing, or skilled nursing is probably the same as we all know as nursing homes. And as you go through that continuum, the costs go up.
A major concern is a generational domino effect as we live longer.
It is going to make it harder going backwards for generations to get ahead when it comes to their own retirement and to be able to have enough money to put towards long-term financial goals.
Sullivan has some advice.
Talking to financial advisors, estate planning attorneys, folks like myself, living advisors who understand some of the dynamics in play.
Something that Scott Thomas now considers.
I'm thinking about, well, no, what about us? When we get older, do we have enough savings for ourselves so that we don't put other family members in the situation as well?
Gen Xers believe they'll need to save more than $1.5 million to retire comfortably, but more than half say they don't think they will reach that goal. We'll be right back to continue our rundown of today's top stories on Today as It Happened. Welcome back to Today as It Happened. All right, let's check back in on our daily briefing of the day's top stories.
2 people are dead and 4 seriously wounded after a man rammed his truck into pedestrians and started stabbing people outside of a synagogue in the UK. The rampage ended after police shot and killed the man. A somber British Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, addressed the nation, noting the attack happened on Yom Kippur, the holiest day of the Jewish year.
A vile individual committed a terrorist attack that attacked Jews because they are Jews and attacked Britain because of our values. So many Jewish families first came to this country as a place of refuge, fleeing the greatest evil ever inflicted on a people. And Britain welcomed them. Communities like the one attacked in Manchester provided safety, but also the security that comes from a promise that this is a country that stands up to hatred and that we don't just provide refuge, we provide a home.
Now, Starmer went on to say that the Jewish community will see compassion and decency after this horrific attack, and he promised them that Britain would wrap their arms around them. Back home in the States, the Senate wants to talk to the FCC chair about his not-so-veiled regulatory action threat against ABC over Jimmy Kimmel's comments on Charlie Kirk's killing. Federal Communications Commission Chair Brendan Carr's comments drew sharp criticism from both sides of the aisle, with Republican Ted Cruz of Texas actually being the first to publicly condemn those comments. He called the move dangerous for the government to decide what speech is allowed and which is not. Now, a date for the Senate Commerce Committee hearing has not yet been set. And the first wave of FIFA World Cup 2026 tickets is now live. Good luck to you all. 4.5 million people signed up for a lottery system last month just to get a chance to buy tickets. This is like a Taylor Swift concert. If you are chosen, you have a few days to get your money together to buy those seats. Tickets go from $60 to $6,700. Keep in mind, FIFA is using dynamic pricing, so those prices can skyrocket. The soccer championship will be played in the US, Mexico, and Canada next summer. New details emerging in the shooting that led to the death of conservative activist Charlie Kirk. He was killed while on a speaking tour at a Utah college campus September 10th, and it set off a massive 33-hour manhunt for the shooter, which ended when Tyler Robinson turned himself in after talking to his family. Senior national investigative correspondent Lori Jane Gliha is live now with us with new video showing the alleged shooter after the attack, and this is exclusive to Scripps News. So Lori Jane, what do we see in this video?
Yeah, Maritza, we just got this video. It is grainy, but according to police, it shows Tyler James Robinson, the man charged with shooting Charlie Kirk, at a gas station the day after the shooting. Cedar City Police in Utah released this footage to Scripps News showing the man charged with killing Charlie Kirk, Tyler James Robinson, filling up his vehicle at a gas station the morning after the shooting. According to the police report, he pulls up in a gray Dodge Charger to pump 11 and fills up. Police, following his moves, were asked to investigate whether he dumped any evidence in trash cans. But based on this surveillance video, his visit here appears to be short, and police determined he did not throw anything away. And the surveillance video was recorded the morning after Charlie Kirk was killed, during the time when there was an ongoing manhunt for the shooter. Now, Robinson turned himself in later that evening, and the following day, investigators checked the gas station after looking through Robinson's financial transactions. The gas station, just for context, is about 3 hours south of Utah Valley University, where the shooting happened. Robinson lived further south in Washington, Utah. Maritza.
And Lori Jane, how did you get this video?
You know what? When crimes like this happen, our investigative team works really hard to find out as much information as we can about the suspects so we can bring it to the viewers. So we will often send out open records requests to police departments in cities where the suspect lived or may have had an interaction. Sometimes we'll get back reports that mention a video, and that's what happened this time. One police report led to another, and in one of those reports we received, there was a mention of surveillance video, and my investigative teammate, my producer, filed an additional request and asked for the surveillance video, and that's what we just showed you. And we just feel like this helps people get a better sense of this suspect's behavior if they can see it for themselves with their own eyes watching that video. Maritza.
Always hard at work. Scripps News senior national investigative correspondent Lori Jane Gliha live. Thank you so much, Lori Jane.
Coming up on Today As It Happened, day 2 of the federal government shutdown.
Speaker Johnson says he's got nothing to negotiate with you over. Will you accept anything less than a permanent extension of Affordable Care Act subsidies?
Stay with us for Scripps News congressional correspondent Nathaniel Reed's reporting from Capitol Hill. That's after the break. Day 2 of the latest government shutdown.
The House isn't even in Washington this week. They're scheduled to come back next week. Meanwhile, the U.S. Senate, no votes today, as you said, because of the Jewish holiday Yom Kippur.
We wanted to pass a clean continuing resolution, we still do, to keep the government open, and then we can negotiate.
All the pressure should be on the 44 Democrats who were dug in to try to pander to the far left corner of their base. That's what this is.
We're going to be voting tomorrow. And we're going to give my Democrat colleagues another opportunity to reopen the government by passing the clean, nonpartisan funding extension before us.
Does any reasonable person think that Donald Trump or J.D. Vance or Mike Johnson or Senate Republicans are behaving like individuals who actually want to reopen the government? I mean, House Republicans literally are on vacation right now, scattered throughout the country and the world.
A blame game on Capitol Hill as the government shutdown will likely continue through tomorrow. At the very least, it does not appear to be any closer to getting finality, no more movement towards getting a final bill passed here, a continuing resolution. The Senate will vote again at 1:30 p.m. Eastern tomorrow. Worth noting here, they are voting on the exact continuing resolution that has already failed. I think we're at 3 times now. Scripps News congressional correspondent Nathaniel Reed is live on Capitol Hill. Nate, did I get that right? 3 times or 4 times? I'm losing track.
You did. It's failed 3 times. It looked tomorrow is looking likely like it could be a 4th.
Okay, so Nate, you know what they say. Insanity is doing exactly the same thing over and over and over, but expecting different results. Over the break, we heard you speaking with House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries. So what did he tell you? Did we learn anything new?
Yeah, he just held a brief press availability here on Capitol Hill, the steps of the House of Representatives, which are fairly barren today. The House of Representatives does not return until next week. House Speaker Mike Johnson sent them home a couple weeks ago after passing that short-term bill to keep the government open, basically pushing the ball into the Senate's court, saying, look, the Senate has to pass this. There's no negotiation to be had. He reiterated that point today. The Speaker has dug in, making clear that there's nothing to negotiate with Democrats on. But in the same vein, the House Democratic leader, Hakeem Jeffries, making clear to reporters and then to me in my question and answer session with him that there is nowhere to negotiate on health care. The minority leader making very clear he wants these Affordable Care Act subsidies, which end at the end of this year, could cause health care to spike, the cost to spike for millions of Americans. He wants that included in any sort of agreement to reopen the government. Again, to be clear, both sides here digging in their heels. Here's the House Democratic leader just a couple of moments ago.
Reopen the government, enact a spending agreement that actually meets the needs of the American people while at the same time addressing the Republican health care crisis. Unfortunately, Republicans have shown zero interest in even having a conversation. After the White House meeting, on Monday, we've seen behavior by the president that is unserious and unhinged. And Leader Schumer and myself haven't gotten a single phone call as it relates to a follow-up conversation. We're ready to have that conversation, but we need credible partners on the other side of the aisle. And Donald Trump and Republicans have made clear they wanted to shut down the government. They want to inflict pain on the American people. They continue to engage in their retribution efforts, and they have zero interest, zero, in providing high quality, affordable, and accessible care to everyday Americans. Questions?
Leader Jeffries, Speaker Johnson says he's got nothing to negotiate with you over. Will you accept anything less than a permanent extension of Affordable Care Act subsidies?
The legislation that House Democrats and Senate Democrats have introduced together relates to a permanent extension of the Affordable Care Act tax credits for working class Americans. Understand, in the Republican One Big Ugly Bill, where they enacted the largest cut to Medicaid in American history, stole food from the mouths of hungry children, hungry seniors, and hungry veterans, and all of this was done so that they could provide massive tax breaks to their billionaire donors. And you know what? Those massive tax breaks were made permanent. Why in the world should everyday Americans, working class Americans, hardworking American taxpayers accept anything less? I mean, literally this year, House Republicans, Senate Republicans, and Donald Trump enacted massive tax breaks for their billionaire donors, for the wealthy, the well-off, and the well-connected, all to subsidize the lifestyles of the rich and shameless. And this was done permanently, and now they want the American people, not us, Democrats, the American people to accept anything less than a permanent extension of tax credits that make their health care affordable. Understand this, over the last few days and over the next few days, what you're going to see is more than 20 million Americans experience dramatically increased health care premiums, copays, and deductibles because of the Republican unwillingness to extend the Affordable Care Act tax credits. They're not even willing to extend it for multiple years, let alone do what Republicans just did for billionaire donors, which is to extend the billionaire tax breaks permanently. Of course, the American people should accept nothing less.
Leader Jeffries.
Yep.
Thank you. Good afternoon.
The Democratic leader digging in his heels there, making clear that he will accept nothing less than an extension, a permanent extension of those Affordable Care Act tax credits, which expire at the end of this year. Again, if they do expire, cost of health care will go up for millions of Americans, according to the nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office. He also was asked about the possibility of layoffs of federal employees, something the Trump administration has floated doing in recent days. His response to that, he thinks the Trump administration has already been unlawfully laying off federal employees, and so clearly Democrats not goaded to the table by that specific line from Republicans and the Trump administration. At this point, it's hard to say when the shutdown will end, Maritza. Both sides dug in as ever.
So, Nate, I want to ask you about this. I mean, we heard Leader Jeffries call for credible partners there. And we know that there's been reporting that Senator Jeanne Shaheen has expressed a trust in her Republican colleagues that if they promise to negotiate on this, that she thinks they'll hold up to their end of the deal. Is there any other appetite for that amongst the Democrats on Capitol Hill that maybe could lead to reopening the government and then negotiating before we come up against the next fiscal cliff in 7 weeks?
I mean, look, there might be, but Republicans I've spoken with, seem to think that this could be a war of attrition, just holding that same government funding vote, which has failed 3 times now, could fail a 4th tomorrow, over and over and over again until more Democrats get on board with them. So far, 3 Democrats have crossed party lines to vote with Republicans to try and reopen the government. The hope from Republicans is that more Democrats will join them. There's no guarantees about that. There's a lot of questions about what Republicans could offer Democrats at this point to get them to the table. And look, those bipartisan negotiations, if they are ongoing, kind of remain kind of on the back burner at this point. The House of Representatives off until next week. So even if there was a bipartisan deal reached, kind of a Hail Mary tomorrow, the House wouldn't even have the opportunity, if Speaker Johnson put the bill on the floor, to vote on it until next week. And of course, it would still need approval of President Donald Trump as well and his signature to reopen the government. So again, it's really hard to see what the way out is here, Maritza, without one side or the other backing down.
Yeah, congressional correspondent Nathaniel Reed live on Capitol Hill for us. Thank you so much, Nate.
Up next on Today As It Happened.
They are doing it for political reasons. They are doing it because they want to give taxpayer-funded health care benefits to illegal aliens, which is something the American people resoundingly rejected.
Welcome back to Today As It Happens, Scripps News debrief of our top stories of the day. So let's get to it.
We haven't wanted to negotiate. We just want to keep the government open. That's been the Republican and the Trump White House position since the very beginning. We wanted to pass a clean continuing resolution. We still do.
Let's hear more from what the president is saying and go over across town to the White House here. The key sticking point between Democrats and Republicans, as we've been talking about, is over health care benefits. Now, Republicans have been unified in this message that Democrats want to extend health care to undocumented immigrants, something the White House has been very vocal about in the past few days.
But our country can't handle people that come into our country illegally, and they want to give them full health care benefits.
And unfortunately, the Democrats are fighting to shut it down for the benefit of illegal aliens.
They are doing it because they want to give taxpayer-funded health care benefits to illegal aliens.
And it doesn't just stop there. We are seeing it from Republicans on Capitol Hill as well. Here now with the latest from the White House, though, is Scripps News reporter and producer Jacob Gardenswartz. Jacob, is there any validity to the White House's claims here?
Yeah, good afternoon, Maritza. The short answer is no. The longer answer is that it's a little bit more complicated than that, but really no. So, let's get our facts straight here. According to long-standing federal law, undocumented immigrants are not eligible for any federal health insurance programs and has not changed. What Democrats are asking for, as Nate was just reporting, speaking to Leader extension of ACA subsidies. These were government subsidies that helped low-income Americans afford the cost of health insurance that they purchased through their state Affordable Care Act exchanges, the state Obamacare programs. So where does immigration come into this? Well, when Republicans in Congress pushed through the so-called Big Beautiful Bill, their tax cuts and immigration spending package a couple months ago, one of the things that measure did was tighten requirements with regards to what type of legal immigrants are eligible for certain health care coverage programs. So, for example, programs like Medicaid, Children's Health Insurance, and those subsidized ACA health plans, the One Big Beautiful Bill tightened it so that people who were in the country, who had immigrated to the country but were in the country legally, they had been granted asylum or refugee claims, or they had been granted temporary protected status, they would no longer be eligible for those health care coverage provisions. This is something that the Democrats want to reverse in their proposal to keep the government open and extend the subsidies, is make it so that some of those legal immigrants might again be eligible for some of these government funding programs. Now, one argument you'll hear a lot from Trump administration officials, including from Vice President Vance, who we heard in the briefing room yesterday, is that the Biden administration misused the asylum system or went about trying to give undocumented immigrants legal status in a way that somehow ran afoul of existing laws or regulations. Here's what Vice President Vance had to say about that yesterday.
We all know that there are various ways in which the Biden administration waved away illegal immigration status. They gave parolees, they gave asylum claims to people who weren't really claiming asylum. And when they waved the magic wand of amnesty, giving millions of people legal status, even though they were in the country illegally, they also gave those people access to health care benefits.
So again, that's certainly a fair argument to make, and the Trump administration has really taken a number of steps since the president took office earlier this year to try to claw back or limit some of those immigration processes that President Biden had enacted, revoking temporary protected status for a number of different groups. A lot of those measures have been challenged in court. Some have been successful, some have been less successful. But again, it is not accurate to say that there is any federal health insurance coverage going to undocumented immigrants. That is outlawed, and nothing in Democrats' plan would change that. Now, here's where it gets slightly more complicated. One other sort of factor involved in all of this concerns what's known as the Emergency Medical Treatment and Active Labor Act, often known as EMTALA. And that's a longstanding federal law that does a number of different things. But one of the things it says is that if I show up to an emergency room and I have a medical emergency, I should be able to get medical help regardless of my immigration status, regardless of how much money I have, regardless of whether I have health insurance. That is how it works in the United States. In almost every hospital, if you show up to the hospital with a medical emergency, you will be treated. Now, there are some programs that federal governments and states help reimburse hospitals for the costs they incur providing that emergency coverage to individuals. And one of those programs, Emergency Medicaid, can provide some reimbursement money to hospitals for undocumented immigrants who have healthcare emergencies. So again, this is not health insurance coverage. This is coverage for actual healthcare that is given in emergency situations. And we don't have any real federal figures as to how much money actually goes to this. The government does not break that down. But the Kaiser Family Foundation, a healthcare research group, one study found that less than 1% of all Medicaid spending from 2017 to 2023 actually went to that reimbursement for undocumented immigrants seeking emergency health care. So again, the White House and Republicans could go about and say they want to change the law and make it so that emergency hospitals no longer have to provide coverage to anybody who shows up at their doors. That is something they could do. Officials have actually been asked that as recently as yesterday and today. They've mostly dodged those questions.
All right, White House producer and reporter Jacob Gardensworth, thank you so much.
Thanks so much for joining us this evening for Today As It Happened. I'm Holly Furfer. We hope you have a great Thursday night.